Phil, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so thrilled to have you on our podcast.
Thank you, Rachel. Really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Firstly, let me just say for my audience at home, as we introduce Phil, it's a really unusual career role, can I say, journey that I've seen that you've had just from looking from the sidelines, from leading external communications at Mission Australia, now to leading the chaplaincy. And before we get into it, I want to know what actually motivated you to join Mission Australia as an organization?
I'd been working at financial services, wasn't finding the work fulfilling, and was really looking for joining an organisation that was more aligned to my purpose and reason for being. And saw a role advertised with Mission Australia and thought, wow, this organisation sounds amazing. Not in my part of Sydney, so it wasn't completely familiar to me at all. And here's this large organisation doing such wonderful work in these communities all around Australia.
No, it's so true. I can say from working with Mission Australia just for the short period that I did, that the incredible work you do and the professionalism that you offer and have, as well as just the heart that you hold as well for each client that comes through your door, it's really amazing to watch because I think it's just very unusual, and it's something that is clearly so needed in this country. And now you're leading the chaplaincy, like the whole of the chaplaincy operations, if you will. What was that change like? Did that feel like a very natural, organic process for you? How did that come about?
Well, I suppose I at some point came to the conclusion that I wanted to invest more in my theological understanding. I wanted to really understand, well, why is it that I believe what I believe, So decided to embark on some study with no particular outcome in mind. I didn't think I'd be working in full-time ministry at all. I was doing it more there's some beautiful older men and women in our church who go and serve in rural communities as they're retired. And I thought, well, that'd be a great thing to be equipped to do, when that time comes, which is still quite a way off for me. But I thought, well, that'd be a fantastic investment of time, wouldn't it? And I can only benefit from this investment in getting to know God better. So, I embarked on those studies. And then towards the end of completing those studies, the National Chaplain at Mission Australia decided to move on, and I was asked to act in an interim capacity in that role by our former CEO. And at the time I was like, yeah, but just so you know, I'm going back to marketing. I'm just doing this to help out. But God had other plans,
Yeah.
I genuinely love the role. It's such a privilege, and to work alongside the other chaplains who do such a wonderful job caring for our staff and clients who access our services. It's just a real blessing.
I can certainly speak to the blessing of even just being around the amazing chaplains that you have as a service. I've been able to spend just a little bit of time seeing firsthand some of the work they do, in Sydney with people who are just in between the really hard parts of life, and how you nurture that and are there for them and put in very, respectful boundaries, but also resources in place as well. I was really touched by it. And let me ask you, from a leadership perspective, what inspires your leadership style? Do you have any particular frameworks or role models that you look to? Is it, people in the Bible, or is it someone who you grew up watching or lived around? I'm just wondering, because you seem to have a very sincere leadership style, but it's very effective as well. So I just wonder, do you have any thoughts or any particular, I don't know, any particular roadmap you follow there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know a lot of people subscribe to they might follow a particular leader or have a mentor, and I've never actually had anything formal like that. For me, I just really glean what I can from whoever I meet. And as leaders, we can learn from people who aren't in formal leadership roles, I've learnt so much from my wife as she cares for our children. I've learnt from my parents growing up. I've learnt from older saints at church who have gotten alongside of me and sort of checked in and seen how I was going when I was a going through a rough patch or whatever. So I don't know the answer to that question. No, I don't. I actually don't.
I think you've actually answered it well, which is, I think sometimes we think we have to have, I call it a framework or a formal way to learn how to do leadership. But I think the most I've learned, probably similar to you, but not as well communicated, is by sitting in a room and listening to that person that everyone listens to and how they communicate. And that's what I always do. Who's this person that everyone listens to and always responds to and always seems to get the result they want? How do they communicate? That's how I kind of frame it in my head and take those notes down. But it sounds like whoever God has placed in your path, you have just been very open and teachable and coachable. And I love the fact that you include your wife in on that and on how she parents, because I mean, talk about leadership in the home, how that can, if you can do it well there, you can do it well anywhere.
Everyone has value, intrinsic value. I mean, God, we know that from God. Everyone's created in his image, and he gifts each of us uniquely in so many different ways. So we can learn from almost anybody and apply those learnings to how we treat others, how we lead, how we interact, how we respect, how we embrace, all those things.
Reflecting back on your maybe early leadership days, what do you think is one of the biggest lessons you learned or biggest takeaways or biggest moments, if you will, from those really early days of leading teams?
Oh, I think it's very easy when you are young and new to leadership to think you know a whole lot more than you actually know, and to disregard the experience of others who have perhaps been in roles or been in similar roles or walked those sorts of paths that you're walking on before. And I definitely was somebody who was not thinking enough about, and also the other thing is just the long haul too. How do you work, and how do you care for yourself so that you can sustain your work?
Oof.
Make sure you get enough rest. Don't burn the candle at both ends. They're big watch-outs, I think, when you're new to leadership.
You seem to be quite passionate about chaplains' self-care and pastors. I know there was some, recent research coming out about that. A lot of pastors are suffering from burnout. People in those chaplaincy type of roles, that it can be really easy to be catering to everyone else's needs and maybe not always your own.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think that's where having a really strong support network of peers, colleagues who can call you on that and can say, hey, do you think you're stretching yourself a bit too far at the moment? Because in roles like ours, which are caring roles, it's very easy to overcook it, if you like. But for us to be truly effective in our roles, we need to be able to be fully present. And if we've got too much going on that we haven't dealt with, we're not able to be fully present for people, and then we're not able to be effective.
I love that. There's such wisdom in that, and it reminds me of the scene in the Bible where they said Jesus pulled away from the crowds and went and rested
up to a mountaintop. Yeah,
he didn't wait until the crowds left or subsided. There will always be needs. We'll never be done serving. We won't heal everybody.
And if you burn yourself out in the process, you're not just doing yourself and your family a disservice. You're doing a disservice to the people that you're here to serve as well. So it's almost like a double whammy, So yeah, it's just incredibly important. So that's why we insist on each of our chaplains having a buddy that they check in on each month at least. They all receive professional supervision as well as ongoing discussions with their manager. I meet with all of my staff fortnightly. It's just so important to care for each other. And that was one of the big learnings I think I got out of COVID as well. When you're not seeing people, I mean, back in the day when everybody went to work every day in person, when you're not seeing people every day, you really do need to go in and check in on people, because it was so easy for people to feel isolated.
Yeah. It definitely changes the way we relate And you're right. It's so much easier to tell when you're seeing someone regularly what's going on versus having those very structured check-ins, which there's so much wisdom to that. I love that.
Yeah, you need both.
All right. So taking a step back, obviously Mission Australia, you guys are one of the biggest charities in Australia that helps with homelessness. I think you're the third biggest charity in Australia. And what I want to know is when it comes to the term homelessness, what is it that most people don't understand about this term or the situation?
Yeah, look, the most common thing when people hear the word homelessness, for whatever reason, their mind tends to go to the guy they saw in a park who was sitting on a bench alone. And that is homelessness, absolutely. That's rough sleeping. That's the really pointy end of homelessness. But rough sleeping is only about 6% of homelessness. The rest of homelessness is largely hidden. So that's people who are staying in temporary supported accommodation, unsafe places, couch surfing, imposing on family and friends until those family or friends can't take them anymore, and then they impose on other family and friends. So, that's the biggest misconception, that homelessness is rough sleeping.
That really surprised me when I started seeing the behind the scenes of what that looked like, even with the data that, your team has, particularly with, I think one of the biggest groups coming out of it, I think it's older women who, which I thought was really interesting.
That's the fastest growing sort of segment of people experiencing homelessness. And it's often tied up with women who are over age 55 hadn't even if they'd worked all their life, so assuming they never had kids, whatever, haven't got superannuation like men do, and if they've perhaps separated or their partner has died, then they can find themselves incredibly vulnerable to homelessness because they just don't have savings behind them. And if you're over age 55 and you've got a job just working at the checkout at Woolies or whatever, you might be working really hard, or a cleaner or whatever it is, you just can't earn enough to get by these days unless you've got those savings behind you. Yeah.
I think it would surprise people how easy it is to become financially vulnerable, particularly, in the environment that we're in right now and the climate that we're in. So for the people that you do see on the street that are quite clearly homeless or have nowhere to go on the bench, how can we help someone? What is the best approach? I've always wondered this because I had my own little ways, which were sometimes very unwelcome and not helpful, I have to say, to those on the receiving end of Rachel trying to be helpful. I could share those stories another time. But at one time I was walking to work and I was in Sydney, so I used to see people a lot. And so I used to take 2 lunches. And one time I would give it to someone. And sometimes it was okay. One time though, I went and got myself a coffee and I saw someone who was clearly doing it really rough. And I bought double of everything. So double coffee, double banana bread. And they threw it in my face. And it's not funny, but I remember thinking, I thought I was doing such a great thing. But later I learned, no, Rachel, that's not the right thing. You just assumed they were hungry. You didn't go and ask what they wanted. You didn't, so I know there are ways. I wanted to help. Clearly, there are other better ways to go around this. I did do some volunteering later, but please do share, Phil. What is the appropriate way and best approach to help someone when you see that, when you're approached when you see that situation?
Well, you're probably not going to like me saying this, but I don't think there is a right way. And but the learnings that you've already had are really valuable, right? So the first thing to remember is that the person who's in the park is a person, and they are worthy of respect. So acknowledging them is the starting point.
Yeah.
Not pretending that they're not there and walking past and getting on with your day, but just being prepared to share a smile, say hello. If you're walking past them every day or regularly, then there's an opportunity to build a relationship and check in on how they're going. They might be hungry today because somebody else just bought them breakfast, but they might be hungry tomorrow.
Yeah.
Often people who find themselves in these situations have major trust issues because they've trauma and mental health and whatever else has gone on for them that's led to them to being in that situation. And so just being there as another friendly human is the most valuable thing you can do. Whether or not you choose to buy anything for them or not, that's a personal decision. it is a tricky thing. Mission Australia, we talk about trying to help people to grow their independence. And by that, we don't mean necessarily independence from God. We just mean independence from needing to rely on welfare or rely on organisations like ourselves. We'd rather we didn't exist. So choosing to donate to an organisation like Mission Australia, where okay, these people get homelessness, they run outreach services, that sort of thing can be really helpful. Or supporting other church-based activities. Lots of churches run community meals and things like that aren't just, here's a sandwich for the morning, but offer community as well. And then when there's community and then there's trust, then people start being open to seeking other help, like professional help and that sort of thing, because that's the end game. That's really what we'd love to see for these people. But they have their own agency. They have their own capacity to make decisions. Not all of them helpful all of the time, just like the rest of us. But we want to be in a position to best be able to support people for the long term.
It really is the long game, isn't it? Here, I think sometimes we have this, even this, I want to help somebody because it makes me feel better in that moment that maybe I've helped. And potentially just partnering with an organization like Mission Australia is the best way you can help long term. And I can say, because I spent some time with one of your community hubs that did the partnership, did a partnership with one of the churches for the community meals, made over 100 meals for members of the community. You had people out the door, and it was such a beautiful experience. Not only were people fed, but there was this amazing food fresh market. So they got groceries, they got a hot meal, they got community, and like you said, they had agency to be able to go, actually, this is the food I'd like. This is what I need right now. And it's opt in, opt out, but our doors are open. And I remember watching it and thinking, and, speaking to one of the clients who was using your services quite regularly, who was very honest about the challenges he had. And what I thought was amazing was Mission Australia wasn't there trying to change him, trying to force their will on him. We all have free will, but they were there even on the hard days when maybe not wise decisions were made, but on the good days when they decided to turn up again. And I was really touched by that, because I thought that is Christianity in action. It's, we will be here for you, and just here's our place, and you can come when you need us and when you're ready. And I just thought that is just so empowering and inspiring to see that it's not a quick fix situation. We will never heal everybody, but this is a journey that they're on, and we have to be ready and open to all the different parts of that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like anything, people who struggle with mental health, or people who struggle with alcohol or drugs or gambling, whatever it is, none of these things are quick fixes. They're not something you can turn around overnight, but most people are capable of achieving significant life goals just with the right support and just getting alongside them and being there to support them when they're ready.
Amazing. So tell me, what is Mission Australia doing right now? What is some of the major campaigns you're working on? What is it that you'd like people to know or see about Mission Australia at the moment?
Yeah, look, there's so much always going on at Mission Australia because we do so many things. But two things I'll mention. The first is some new social housing that we're opening up in Northern Sydney, social and affordable housing, actually. And that's just such an amazing opportunity. It's pretty much groundbreaking work. So it's a partnership between the New South Wales government, Fraser's Property, Mission Australia, local church groups, other community service organisations in the area. But what it is redeveloping a former social housing estate that had 230 townhouses on it, and turning it into a entirely new community, which is going to take some time. But the first social and affordable homes are being tenanted at the moment by Mission Australia. But what makes it unique is it's a truly new development that integrates social housing, affordable housing, and normal market housing in the one development. And Mission Australia will have an ongoing presence there, with community development and wraparound support services for people. And it all of the stories I've heard so far, some of the tenants I've been able to speak to, just talk about being so grateful for this opportunity. And it's a really new way of looking at, well, how do we build community in a vertical environment, which we're not doing so well at, I don't think, in many respects. I know I used to live in an apartment, and we knew the person across the road, but not the one upstairs, because they were always renters moving in and out. You know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we actually go about doing that on scale? Because this will have over 3,000 homes altogether when the construction's complete. So that's an amazing thing. And the other thing that we're working on at the moment is opening up a 40-bed youth foyer in Townsville. So that will be opening in the next sort of 6 weeks or so, we hope. Officially, we'll have some young people moving in before then. But these are young people who are either earning or learning, but need extra support because they don't have the family support that other people might have access to. That's a really exciting opportunity that we can't wait to see in action, because Townsville, like many other places, has an incredible shortage of accommodation, and particularly for young people who are on their own.
Amazing. Those are incredible initiatives. I love it because you guys do partnerships really well. But I think what you're doing, you said groundbreaking. Absolutely. I think it's one of those things we have to be innovative about how to create these solutions. And it's not just a solution for homelessness. It's a solution all across the board. So that is incredible. I cannot wait to see and hear more about the initiative, and obviously the incredible lives they're going to be touched, and the journeys of healing and restoration and independence that will be had as a result of those partnerships. That's incredible. So would we encourage people just to follow you guys along on social media, Mission Australia, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the places?
Yes, we're on all of those. Yeah, so I definitely encourage people to follow us there. If they go to our website, missionaustralia.com.au, you'll find out about our current winter appeal. Donations are always welcome. There's always more we'd love to be able to do. But we do need the funds to be able to do that, to meet human need and spread the knowledge of God's love, which is what we're about at Mission Australia.
Absolutely. I can honestly say, just looking behind the scenes, I had an absolute privilege of working a little bit with Phil and his team a while back, and they honor so well the resources they have. And so any donations, I think, to Mission Australia, you get to see the flow-on effect it has to the people who really do need it most across the country, those who are so vulnerable. So I would absolutely support and agree with that statement. Donate, doesn't matter how much you can start with, but it's definitely a worthy investment, not just here on earth, but in eternity as well. Phil, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a delightful conversation, and I have really appreciated the wisdom that you have shared as well.